question I'm asked a lot: what is a capo for? Essentially, the capo makes it easier to play in the upper positions of the guitar, which is particularly useful in more problematic keys, which have few or no first position chords. There are several occasions where I may be compelled to play up the neck, and in this video, I'll lay out every context in which the capo can be useful. If I've missed any, I welcome comments below, or you can also email them, as well as any additional comments. Let's get started. A capo is a simple tool used to shorten all of the guitar strings the same length at the same time, effectively giving any position on the guitar the same benefits which are found naturally in first position. At the end of this video, we'll discuss the differences between a few different types of capos, as well as some pros and cons. And there's a link below if you'd like to skip ahead to that part of the video now. Beginners especially tend to think about the pitches they are fingering as the chord itself. But all of the chords that we are most commonly first introduced to utilize open strings. The major chords C, A, G, E, and D, and minor chords A minor, D minor, and E minor all utilize one or more of our open strings, E, A, D, G, B, E. This is why when introducing chords to a student, most guitar instructors, including this one, will begin with these chords. Simply put, they're the easiest to play. And indeed, if your guitar instructor introduces you to chords by asking you to play an F sharp, you should probably run. When our first position chord forms are moved up the neck of the guitar, the open string needs to be replaced by the index finger. These are bar chords. And if you're curious about how this works, click on the link below for a thorough explanation of movable chord forms. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button so you'll be sure not to miss future Very Good Guitar lessons. Your feedback is the best way to encourage this channel. So, playing chords in first position gives us the enormous advantage of being able to use the open strings. Essentially, this frees up a finger on my left hand. But wouldn't it be nice if I could have my cake and eat it? What if I could play chords up the neck without the burden of learning the technique of barring? Or let's say I'm able to play bar chords, but would prefer not to, since the open string allows me to play more advanced accompaniment with my left hand. What if I'm playing a chord progression as an accompaniment to a vocal, and the range of the melody doesn't match up with the range of the vocalist, and I want to quickly transpose the chord progression without the burden of rewriting it? Let's demonstrate and explain how a capo can be used to solve any of these problems. Imagine I want to play the CCR hit, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? And the range of the vocal is too high for my range. The melody goes all the way up to a high A, and my range gets a bit dodgy around this E. The first thing I may try to do, maybe intuitively, is sing it down an octave, and this may work, but it may also cause the vocal to be too low for my range, or may just sound odd. So I'm in a pickle. But with my trusty capo, I can move to a key that I can more comfortably sing in without changing how I practically play the song. It may seem strange moving the capo up the neck to solve the original problem of the key being too high. But remember, we've gone down an octave, and by now moving up the neck with the capo, we'll now end up in between the original octave, which was too high, and that lower octave. Of course, if the melody is already too low for your vocal register, skip the step of going down an octave and just start moving up until you're most comfortable. I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? Let's say you find yourself holding a guitar in front of an audience, and this guy asks you to play an Ed Sheeran song. The studio recording of Perfect is in A flat, and if I want to play it in the original key, the chord progression for the verse will look like this. But by putting a capo on fret 1, I can play each of these chords so much more easily, as if they were in first position. Now the chord progression remains the same, but plays like this. My first position G chord having been moved up a half step to A flat. My first position E minor up a half step to F minor. My first position C chord up a half step to D flat. And my first position D chord up a half step to E flat. Even if you are comfortable with bar chords, you'll very often still rely on a capo. You're just frankly able to do more when you have the advantage of being able to use open strings. Here's an arrangement of Fleetwood Mac's Never Going Back Again that I did years ago for a student. A bit more accessible than the studio take and does the trick, I think. Is it even possible to do that in that key without a capo on a standard tuned guitar? Okay, but you get the point. Don't torture yourself. Use a capo. Here's the intro to Jason Isbell's Cover Me Up without a capo. Now, if I was just strumming a chord progression, I suppose I could play in that key well enough. But when integrating specific melody parts into a chord progression like this, it's profoundly easier and often only possible when you're able to use open strings. So, with a capo on fret 2, that now looks like this. Yes, a capo can be used for the sole purpose of just changing the timbre of the guitar. It can be fun to hear the nuanced tone differences when moving the capo up the neck. And additionally, there are practical reasons for doing so. A while back I recorded an album of music by Baroque guitar composer Francesco Corbetta. You probably recall hearing some of those bangers during spring break. On that recording I was trying to emulate what a guitar from that period would have sounded like. So in addition to recording on a guitar which was significantly smaller than a contemporary classic guitar, I used a capo. In shortening the string length, the guitar had a much tighter, bonier sound, which, while not always ideal, helped to serve my purposes on that project. Another example, it's not uncommon to double a chord progression in a different position with a second guitar part using the same chords but revoiced up the neck using a capo. The revoiced chords and distinction in tone can serve to fatten or widen the sound of the accompaniment. If you find yourself jamming with someone, and you're both playing the same exact guitar accompaniment, one easy way to beef up your performance would be to revoice the chords in a different position with a capo. Works great, give it a shot. Okay, so let's look at a couple different styles of capo. Probably the most common capo looks like this, and works pretty much like a typical shop clamp. You'll want to squeeze the handle to open it up, and put the rubber side just behind the fret itself with the handle pointed up at the ceiling. This will make the capo easier to put on and remove, and it'll keep the handle out of the way of your left hand while you're playing. When not in use, I have the option of clipping it to the guitar's headstock or a nearby mic or music stand so that it's still handy for when I need it again. Another style of capo looks like this. On the shub capo, there's a small dial so that I can adjust the capo in order to optimize its closed position for any particular guitar. Variations in neck sizes and strings will determine how open or closed this should be. If the capo is too open, it will not properly clamp to the neck of the guitar, and you'll get buzzing or muting, or both. If the capo is too closed, it will not fit on the guitar, or if it does, you'll run the risk of being out of tune. Too much pressure on the strings, bending them upwards. So, when you have it dialed in, apply the lever, and when you want to remove it, lift the lever. So a slight learning curve with the shub, but its adjustability gives it an edge over the first capo we looked at. Also, if I'm doing any sort of performing, I would prefer the shub. Not only does it have a smaller profile, it's actually rather elegant. So that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this offered something you maybe didn't know. This channel has become a fun hobby for me, so whether it's a like, a share, subscribe, or email, your feedback encourages new, very good guitar lessons.